You wouldn't think your own mother would let an entire household pretend you don't exist. But that's exactly how my life has been for the last 3 years. My name's Ryan, I'm 16, and this is the part of my story I never thought I'd have to say out loud. For as long as I can remember, my mom has been my anchor. It was just the two of us, after she and my dad split up when I was little. They never married, but they did something rare. They managed to co-parent me without killing each other. Every month, I switched houses, half the time with mom, half with dad. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. At least, it did until Ethan came into the picture. Ethan was the kind of guy my mom used to say she'd never date. Polished, 40-something, 2 kids of his own, and a past filled with complications. I didn't think much of it at first. If mom was happy, that was enough for me. Or so I told myself. In the beginning, Ethan acted fine. Polite small talk, awkward questions about school, the typical step-parent trying to figure things out. But somewhere between polite and permanent, something flipped. One day, he just stopped acknowledging me. No arguments, no reason I could see. He'd walk past me in the kitchen like I was air, ignore me in the living room, never say good morning or good night. I tried harder at first, being extra polite, offering to help with chores, even staying out of his way completely. Nothing changed. Then his 2 sons moved in. Liam, 15, and Noah, 12, weren't rude exactly. They were trained by their father to ignore me too. Overnight, the house felt colder, emptier, even though it was full of people. 4 voices chatting, laughing, planning dinners, and not one word aimed in my direction. It was like being a ghost in my own home. Mom noticed, of course. How could she not? I begged her to talk to Ethan, to ask what I'd done wrong. Her answer never changed. That's just how he is. Don't take it personally. As if I could just shrug off being treated like I didn't matter in my own family. When I pressed her, she'd guilt-trip me. Ryan, I gave up so much for you. Can't you compromise for me just this once? So I swallowed it. For 3 years, I sat at silent dinners, passed food around the table without a thank you, and listened to them laugh about inside jokes I was never part of. I told myself I could endure it. 1 month here, 1 month at Dad's. At least Dad still saw me. At least someone did. But even endurance has limits, and mine snapped on the morning I woke up to an empty house. I remember that morning vividly. The eerie quiet hit me first. No clattering dishes, no voices upstairs. Just silence. I wandered room to room, expecting someone to pop out and say surprise, but the house was empty. No backpacks, no shoes by the door, even the car was gone. Panic set in. I grabbed my phone and called Mom. She answered on the 3rd ring, cheerful in a way that made my stomach drop. Oh, hey Ryan. We're on a little road trip with Ethan and the boys, just for the week. Be a sweetheart and keep an eye on the house, okay? I froze. She hadn't told me. She hadn't even thought to mention it. You left me home alone? For a week? I managed to choke out. Don't be dramatic, she said breezily. You're 16. You'll be fine. There's food in the fridge. I'll call you later. And just like that, she hung up. I stood there, phone still in my hand, pulse pounding. Not even a goodbye, not even a love you. Just an order to babysit a house I no longer felt welcome in. That's when it hit me. Maybe I wasn't supposed to feel welcome here anymore. Maybe that was the point. And in that moment, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't staying. I didn't even bother packing much. A few clothes, my phone charger, and the essentials. Everything else felt like it belonged to them, not me. Before I left, I did what Mom always did. Tucked the spare house key under the potted plant by the porch. It felt ironic, leaving her house exactly the way she left me. The walk to Dad's place wasn't long, but every step felt heavier. How was I even going to explain this without sounding bitter or ungrateful? Dad knew Mom and I had complications, but he didn't know about this. He didn't know about the silence, the way Ethan's family pretended I didn't exist. I'd kept it from him on purpose. I didn't want to be the reason they fought again. When I knocked on Dad's door and he opened it, his face went from surprise to concern in a split second. Ryan? You weren't supposed to be here for another 2 weeks. I didn't even try to hold it in. The words tumbled out. How Mom left me alone without telling me. How Ethan and his kids never spoke to me. How every visit to that house felt like walking into enemy territory. I hadn't realized until that moment just how much I'd been carrying. Dad didn't interrupt. He just listened, jaw tightening with every detail. By the time I finished, my voice was raw, my hands shaking. There was a long pause, then he said quietly, "You're not going back there, not until I figure this out." For the first time in months, I felt like someone had my back. Those first few days with Dad were calm. We ate dinner together, talked about school, even laughed a little. It felt normal. But then the calls started. Mom rang my phone the third day I was gone. I thought, maybe she was finally checking up on me. I answered, ready to hear some apology or at least an explanation. Instead, I got screamed at. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" she yelled before I could even say hello. "The house was robbed, Ryan. The TV, the electronics, gone. This is your fault." I stood there in shock. My fault? She left me alone without warning, ignored my calls, and somehow this was on me? "I tried to call you," I shot back, voice shaking with anger. "You hung up on me. I told you I was leaving. You never listened. You could have texted," she snapped. "You could have stayed. I didn't want to stay in that house. You made it clear I wasn't part of that family." Silence. Then, coldly, "Ethan was right about you." That line hit harder than the yelling. "Ethan was right about you." I hung up before she could say more. My hands were trembling, not just from anger but confusion. What did that even mean? What had Ethan been saying about me all this time? Over the next few days, pieces of the puzzle started falling into place. Pieces I didn't even know existed. Dad started digging, calling people, talking to family friends, and slowly, an ugly truth began to surface. Ethan's hatred for me wasn't random. It was built on lies my own mother told him. Apparently, Mom had painted me as some kind of delinquent, told Ethan I badmouthed his late wife, said I called his kids evil little goblins, even claimed I'd to make life miserable if he moved in. Things I would never say. Things so outrageous I couldn't believe Ethan bought them until I remembered how quickly he shut me out without a word. The more I learned, the more everything made sense, and the more it burned. Mom hadn't just failed to defend me, she'd thrown me under the bus to make her life easier. And that's when Dad said something that would change everything. "She lied to protect herself, Ryan. Not you. And I'm done letting her get away with it." For the first time, someone was willing to fight for me, and I had no idea just how far that fight was about to go. The night Dad confronted Mom is burned into my memory. It wasn't loud at first. He called her while I sat in the kitchen, gripping a mug of cold coffee, trying not to eavesdrop. But how could I not? Her voice was muffled through the phone, high-pitched and defensive. Dad's voice, though, low, steady, and sharper than I'd ever heard before. "You lied to him, Claire." "I did what I had to." "No," Dad cut her off. "You lied to me, and you lied to our son. You turned an entire family against him. Why?" The silence that followed was heavier than any shouting could have been. I didn't hear the rest of the conversation, but when Dad hung up, his face said enough. He didn't look angry anymore, just tired. Like the truth had been sitting in his chest for years and finally clawed its way out. "Ryan," he said quietly, "you need to know something." What he told me next made my stomach twist. Apparently, 3 years ago, right when Mom started dating Ethan, he'd asked to move in with her, bringing his 2 sons and his sick mother. Mom didn't want that. She didn't want the responsibility. But instead of telling him the truth, she blamed me. Said I didn't want them there. Said I had called his mother a burden, his kids monsters. She even told Ethan I'd driven away every man she ever dated because I was jealous and territorial. I sat there frozen, every memory of being ignored by Ethan and his kids flashing through my head like shards of glass. All those awkward dinners, the silence in the living room, the way they'd look through me like I wasn't even there. It all made sense now. "Why would she do that?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Dad didn't answer right away. He just stared at me, jaw clenched. Finally, he said, "Because it was easier to let you be the villain than admit she didn't want to make space for them." The words hit like a punch. All this time, I'd been breaking my back trying to earn Ethan's approval, trying to figure out what I did wrong, when I never stood a chance. Mom had poisoned the well before I even stepped foot in it. I didn't sleep that night. My mind kept replaying every insult, every cold shoulder, every time Mom said, "Just give Eddie a chance," while secretly feeding him lies about me. The betrayal cut deeper than anything Ethan ever did. The next morning, Dad told me he was filing for custody. "You deserve better than this," he said. "I'm done letting her drag you through hell." Things moved fast after that. Lawyers, court dates, statements. I didn't even have to say much. The evidence spoke for itself. Texts from Mom dodging my calls. Witnesses who'd seen how Ethan's kids treated me. And finally, the bombshell. Ethan himself. Out of nowhere, he emailed me. A single line at first. I didn't know the truth. "I'm sorry." A week later, he sent a longer message. He'd confronted Mom after Dad's call, demanding answers. She confessed everything. The lies, the way she'd twisted my words, the way she used me as a scapegoat to keep him from bringing his sick mother into the house. Ethan admitted he hated me for years because of what she told him, and now he hated himself for believing it. By the time court rolled around, Mom's perfect image was crumbling. Ethan filed for divorce. His kids moved in with their aunt. And Mom didn't even look at me during the hearings. When the judge granted Dad full custody, I thought I'd feel triumphant. I didn't. I just felt hollow. Walking out of that courtroom, I realized something. Mom hadn't just broken my trust. She'd rewritten my entire childhood. I thought the custody battle would be the end of it, that once the judge ruled in Dad's favor, Mom would finally let go. I was wrong. If anything, losing in court only pushed her deeper into desperation. The first sign came 2 days after the verdict. I woke up to find a string of missed calls and texts from her. Dozens of them, all sent between midnight and 3 in the morning. "You don't understand what you've done to me. I gave up everything for you, Ryan. How could you let your father turn you against me?" The messages got darker as they went on. Long rants about how Ethan had abandoned her, how his kids hated her now, how she had no one left. Part of me felt guilty, until I remembered every cold dinner, every lie she told to make me the villain in a house where I never belonged. For weeks, she spiraled, posting cryptic quotes on Facebook, showing up at my school parking lot unannounced. Once, she even came to Dad's house, pounding on the door and screaming until the neighbors threatened to call the cops. Dad handled it calmly, but I could see the anger simmering behind his eyes. He wasn't just mad for me. He was mad for every sacrifice he'd made over the years, staying in the same city so I could have 2 parents in my life. And this was how Mom repaid him, by weaponizing me and her lies. The worst part? Ethan reached out again, not to Mom, but to me. He wanted to meet. I didn't know what to expect when I saw him sitting alone at a diner booth, hands clasped, looking 10 years older than when I last saw him. For the first time ever, he spoke to me like I mattered. "I owe you an apology," he said, voice rough, "for believing her, for making you feel invisible in your own home." I stared at him, unsure what to say. All those years of silence, how do you answer that? He went on to explain everything. How Mom had told him I called his dying mother a burden. How she claimed I'd driven away every man she dated. How she said I hated his kids. "I thought I was protecting my family," he admitted, "but I was punishing you for something you never did." Hearing it out loud should have made me angry. Strangely, it didn't. It just made me tired. By the end of the conversation, Ethan confessed he was filing for divorce. Not because of me, he said, but because he realized he didn't even know who Mom really was. "She lied to all of us," he said quietly. "I can't live like that." Word of the divorce spread fast. Mom lost her marriage, her stepkids, and now custody of me. People who once saw her as the perfect single mom started whispering behind her back. She tried to spin the story, painting herself as a victim of betrayal, but the truth was out, and no one was buying it anymore. The last time I saw her was outside the courthouse after the final hearing. She stood by the steps, arms crossed, eyes red but dry. "You'll regret this someday," she said flatly. I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized I didn't recognize the woman in front of me. She wasn't the mom who read bedtime stories or stayed up with me when I had nightmares. That mom was gone years ago, replaced by someone I didn't know. "No," I said quietly. "I think I finally understand." And then I walked away. Moving in with Dad full-time felt strange at first. For years, I'd split my life between 2 houses, 2 sets of rules, 2 versions of myself. Now, for the first time, there was only one home, and it was mine. No walking on eggshells, no pretending I didn't exist, no waiting for someone to acknowledge I was in the room. Dad gave me space to breathe, but more than that, he gave me stability. The first night I unpacked my things, he made my favorite dinner. Just spaghetti with garlic bread, nothing fancy. But halfway through the meal, I realized I hadn't felt that safe in years. No one was watching me with silent judgment. No one was blaming me for things I never did. It was quiet, and that quiet was everything. I focused on school, threw myself into basketball tryouts, and reconnected with the friends I'd drifted from. At first, they didn't know how to act. They'd heard rumors about the chaos at my mom's house, but once I opened up, they understood. It felt good to stop hiding the truth, to stop carrying it alone. Meanwhile, news about Mom spread like wildfire. Her divorce from Ethan finalized quickly. Apparently, he'd discovered even more lies after we parted ways. She tried reaching out to me a few times, texting about how family sticks together and everyone deserves a second chance. But I couldn't bring myself to reply. It wasn't anger holding me back, it was exhaustion. After years of being treated like a problem she needed to manage, I had nothing left to give. Dad never pressured me to forgive her. He simply said, "When you're ready to talk, you'll know. Until then, focus on building your life, not fixing hers." Those words stuck with me. Slowly, I did just that. By winter, things started to look different. I was pulling good grades again, sleeping through the night without anxiety, and even got picked for the varsity team, something I never thought would happen after everything that went down. The biggest surprise? Ethan reached out one last time, not for Mom, but for me. He wrote a letter, not an email this time, apologizing for every moment he'd made me feel invisible. He said he'd left the city with his kids to start over somewhere quiet. Reading it, I felt something I didn't expect: closure. For the first time, I didn't need an apology to move forward. I was already moving forward. Sometimes I catch myself wondering what Mom's doing now, if she regrets anything, if she's lonely in that house she once shared with all of us. Part of me hopes she's finding help, maybe even healing. But I've learned I can't live my life waiting for someone else to change. The only thing I can control is me, who I choose to become after everything I've survived. And right now, I choose peace. So here I am, 16, starting over, stronger than I ever thought I'd be. My story isn't perfect, but it's mine. And if you're listening to this, maybe you need to hear it too. You are not defined by the people who failed you. You are defined by what you do next. If you've ever been made to feel invisible, if you've ever wondered whether you deserve better, the answer is yes. Don't be afraid to choose yourself. Don't be afraid to walk away.